You know, the internet is amazing. So I was coming to do this, and I couldn't find a guitar player, so I got on Craigslist, and this guy and you said, I'm a local guy, buy me some chilies after it. All right, how you doing? I'm gonna get a photo. Everybody do something on the count of three. 1, 2, 18, 3. All right, so this is the technology of Jimi Hendrix. There's a screen over there. If you're blocking the screen, I love you. I've done this a few times, and this is actually a YouTube episode where you can watch me sit at a table for 50 minutes. It bored my wife to death, but it was really well accepted. We are going to journey through the technological devices that Hendrix used. So technology, is it good to start? Are we good to start? I don't know how this works. We're starting. And hi, Instagram. Technology is a cool thing. Did you know a pencil is technology? Do you know that? The wheel, anything that moves anything forward is a technology. So guitar, in my opinion, is one of the most important technologies of the modern world. And so we see the very first guitar, or the signs of guitar. There are cave drawings from 200 BC. I bet you didn't know we're going to 200 BC. Did you bring your, your wolf jacket? Then in the 16th century, the guitar, or whatever it was, lyres, etc., they make their way to Spain. And we have the Spanish guitar. That guitar is played like this. And then some other amazing things happen in this technological journey. This journey leads us to the mid-1800s, where a German immigrant comes to the United States. His name is C.F. Martin. And C.F. Martin takes the Spanish guitar and he makes it louder, because loud is more good. He puts steel strings on it, X bracing. And then we end up with this amazing thing called electricity. So Benjamin Franklin in the 1700s flew a kite, but he had no idea that by flying a kite, he would help invent the Stratocaster. You laugh, but it's amazing. There's a term called the adjacent possible. We get where we're going from the last thing that happened. And you have this chain of events. Electricity electrifies a 6-string instrument in 1931 because a man named George Beecham winds coils around magnets and shoves it in a hollow body guitar made by Harmony in Chicago. And then he makes the first solid body. And then it's an amazing journey. And then in 1949, a radio repairman named Leo Fender perfects how to make a cheap guitar that sounds amazing. And from that point on, the world is never the same. So from cave drawings to Leo Fender, and then Jimi Hendrix arrives in 1942. He's born in Seattle. Give him a hand. Yeah. So in this movement forward of technology and moving the world forward and music and culture, Jimi Hendrix is born, really poor family, in 1942, and at 15 years old, he gets a guitar. This is 1957. His family loves Elvis. There's a story of him seeing Elvis in a concert. He wants to play music. And in 1961, he goes into the Army. In 1962, he's discharged and starts playing the Chitlin circuit in Tennessee. These are early pictures of Hendrix. Look at these guitars. That's him as a soldier. He was a paratrooper. That's not high res, but at least we have it. In 1966, from the Tennessee thing, he's playing the Chitlin circuit with the Isley Brothers, Little Richard, Curtis Knight. He moves to New York City and he starts a band. People tell him, you should start a band. Why are you a sideman? And he's borrowing guitars. He doesn't even have a good guitar. And he's called Jimmy James and the Blue Flames. And this is May of 1906. He borrows his first pedal. This quote is really interesting. Who's heard of Mike Bloomfield? I won't read the quote. You can read it while I yak. Mike Bloomfield is a big deal. Highway 61 revisited Dylan. Mike Bloomfield is why the Les Paul was reissued, because Les Paul actually didn't sell the Les Paul very well. He sees Hendrix in this state, pre-Jimi Hendrix, and he says, my mind was blown, I was burned to the ground. He wanted to quit guitar. But there's something that Hendrix had at his feet. And there's a pattern of technology that went along with Hendrix's life that I think is a little Twilight Zone, and that's what we're gonna do today. Is that good? We're gonna go through that pattern. Here is the first device that lands at his feet. You see that red circle? A 1962 Maestro fuzz tone. This is the greatest accident in guitar's history. They're recording Don't Worry in the Nashville studio. Marty Robbins, the Frank Sinatra of Nashville. The mixer desk messes up. It makes an amazing sound. And this pedal is invented by a man named Glenn Snoddy and his friend Revis Hobbs. Jimi Hendrix borrows this pedal and becomes Jimi Hendrix. We have a real one hooked up. And here's the deal, Andy. We're just playing around. I've done this. We're professional bull crappers.
I've never met these pedals before in my life.
Yeah. So these are all originals. This is like the real deal stuff.
He's got the box.
Andy, let's see what happens with a Stratocaster into a Maestro.
It sounds better than I thought it was going to sound.
Yeah. So here's the thing that's hard. When I was in high school, Radiohead Kid A was a big deal for me. I've let my kids hear it and they think it sucks. There's a thing about when you're in a moment, you will never understand those moments if you're in the future. Like, has anyone tried to do this? I'm 40, so has anyone like me tried to let your kid hear Nirvana Nevermind and they're glazing over? Anyone? So, we will never understand what it was like for this African-American blues guy in the West Village, borrowing that pedal, playing the guitar with his teeth. Mike Bloomfield walks in and is devastated. He said, I was the new kid on the block. This is a huge moment for guitar that's overlooked. And another eerie coincidence, the invention of this pedal is 1962. Hendrix went on his own into the Chitlin circuit as a player the same year. Twilight Zone. Now, next part. In the winter of '66, he moves to London. He's from Seattle. If you didn't know, Hendrix is not British. It's a thing. He moves to London. And he says, I really like my old Marshall tube amp because when it's working properly, nothing can beat it. And he calls them the size of two refrigerators hooked together. I love these two photos. You ever see the photo where the guy's like dying? Yes. Can we reenact? No.
Go, get back.
I'll get back there.
Mike.
Jim Marshall accidentally creates amp distortion in a brand new way. Hendrix is playing a club. He arrives in England. He's talked into going to England with the deal that he could meet his hero, Eric Clapton. He arrives in England in the winter, and he goes into a club, and there's a band called Trinity. And he walks up, he doesn't own much gear. He plugs into the first Marshall he ever played. Then, like 3 days later, Chaz Chandler, the manager, bass player for the Animals, keeps the agreement and takes him to meet Eric Clapton. And they have the guts to do something. The manager says to Clapton, hey, can this new guy come up and play? This is like this is Cream, the super band, and they agree to it. Hendrix walks on the stage with this Strat, plugs into a Marshall, second time ever, and they do Killing Floor. And the story goes that Clapton, who is God, painted on the walls in the Village, is standing in the back, shaking with a cigarette in his hand. God has been dethroned. This is Hendrix into a Marshall. So maybe talk about Marshall from your perspective.
Okay, so I have a good amount of experience with Marshall amps. I don't have my 68 Plexi with me today, but this sewer circuit is nearly identical to that 68. This is just kind of loud and clean. pretty strong, but it's got a lower like voltage meter. I'm gonna crank up the amp a little bit if that's all right. So you can get a decent amount of distortion out of the crank circuit. I was trying to do killing for it. You could be clapped and shaken. Anyway, that's a nice commercial for Sir, because that's a great.
These Marshalls created the first distortion we had heard in a purposeful way. Before this, you have Delta blues artists turning up amps and overdriving it. But Jim Marshall took the 59 Fender Bassman, a technology, and built upon it in England. And it, once again, freakishly, at the exact time Hendrix shows up. Technology is following. So just, also, I have 4 Andy Timmons signature pedals. Who wants one? Yes. As I
look at that.
I'll do more in a minute. As I threw that, I was reviewing the JHS insurance policy. All right, next. Here's the next freaky thing. Check the screen out. What is that pedal? Nope, not the wah-wah. On November 8th of 1966, this photo is taken, and it is an Arbiter fuzz face. Guess when the fuzz face was invented? The fall of 1966. Hendrix arrives the exact moment the fuzz face is invented. So here's a posing question I want to keep asking. Yes. There's a philosophical dive here that I love. Did Hendrix make these pedals great? Or, maybe it's both, these devices fall into the hands of a talented player and he was making sounds that had literally never been heard. I love this position of thought. We love to think that all this was here and Hendrix walks in and just uses it better. He literally has it first. So keep that in mind. On November 24th, he records Love and Confusion, the first time you ever hear a fuzz face. Ivor Arbiter is a businessman in London. He sees that the tone bender of 65 is selling well. He sees the base of a microphone stand in his office, and he decides to take it and make a smiley face. He's a marketer. He had designed the Beatles logo on the kick drum. He's a brilliant guy. I think Hendrix chose this because it looked wicked cool. I really do. Because all these fuzzes pretty much sound the same. Don't tell anybody I said that. But Hendrix was fashion, right? Andy was talking to me on the phone about this. Hendrix was like fashion and music in your face.
If he hadn't arrived in England when he did, he would have not had any of that vibe. All that Carnaby Street swinging 60s things was in full swing.
Yeah.
Again, so with the fashion along with the technology. Yeah. We're gonna have another fashion talk later.
So Hendrix and his fuzz face. Here's some other pictures. The clicker, there we go. The fuzz face is to Hendrix as mustard is to a hot dog. That's a good analogy. Show it off. Old pedals never work. Lesson 1.
Hot dog or sandwich?
Oh, the jacks are reversed, because that makes sense. All the old pedals, the in is where the out should be. It's maddening. Here we go.
That's what we should hear.
Demonstrate. There's a cool thing if you never noticed. I remember being a teenager and I saw Eric Johnson, Austin City Limits, and I thought he was a witch because he never touched the floor and his clean tone happened. And that's this pedal, watch this. So Hendrix would leave the fuzz on and he would do this. That's like the best clean sound. Yeah. It's a perfect high pass filter, a little bit of dirt, a little bit of magic, unicorn tears spread in there. All right, so this fuzz face is a big deal. Let's keep going down this weird trail of technology. The next thing that's weird is 1967, on January the 11th, a naval engineer walks into the back of Nell's Club in London, and he says to this new guitar god, I've invented a device. Anyone know what the device is? The Octavio. Octavio. These are non-existent in real form. There's a few made. Hendrix, they were stolen, and there's one in the EMP Museum in Seattle, and a good friend of mine was able to get in there and work through that and look at it, and this Dunlop device is a really good issue of it. This device is interesting because it folds the waveform over. What you have is you have your waveform of your guitar, you hit the device, it duplicates it and folds it over on itself, and this creates an octave up fuzz effect. This is really huge because Hendrix is just happening, Twilight Zone, he's just happening to be finishing his first record called Are You Experienced? And they need to record the solos for Purple Haze and Fire. The dude walks into his life, into the club, and magically has a new invention. This is really Twilight Zone, so let's check this out. That's Roger the nerd, I'm a nerd, I can say that. And then Hendrix the cool guy. Roger Mayer was his tech. A lot of you know Roger Mayer went on to make pedals, still alive. Let's listen to Octave Fuzz, which is, it's like the Velcro of guitar. It's amazing.
The really funky thing about it is traditionally, it really only sounds good on the neck pickup, 12 frets and above. Down here.
So, there's actually science and math to this, which I'm not good at because I'm from Alabama, but give this Craigslist guy a hand. He has really good comedic timing. So the 12th fret of the guitar is the octave. So the waveform is folding. There's a math equation to this. And then you do your own octave and you hear it track better. So there's back to that.
I back the gain down so that the upper octave comes out of it.
All right, this next one's fun. You having a good time? Yeah! Let me ask it again. Chicken or the egg here? It's weird. This is weird. He shows up. He's literally born at the breaking of the sound of guitar being technologically changed through invention. And every moment of his notable career introduces a new device that breaks the guitar. How did that feel in the moment watching it? You had never heard it. It's really hard for us to say fuzz is sick, like you won't believe it. We've all heard fuzz. But in this time, what the heck? Like, the waveforms folding over, it sounds like aliens. Like the dude, you know what I'm saying? This is an amazing thought to just process through. And I want you to think about this, and I think about this as a circuit designer. What could happen now like this? Like, will it ever happen again? Can we push the limits of design and playing to do something that hadn't been done? It's really difficult, but this is such a cool lesson in that. Next up, January 20th, 1967, London. Before that, I'm giving away another pedal. Who's the youngest person in here?
I am. It's my birthday.
We're gonna have to see some ID.
Hold on. There was a kid that came by my booth yesterday
Ben.
over here.
There's Ben.
I gave him a hat, and
that
he,
you, Ben?
he wanted me to sign an Eric Gell's
Ben.
pedal. Hold
Ben.
on, where is he?
Is this Ben?
Is this Ben? Come here.
That's Ben.
Is the kid who came by my booth in here? No? Oh, I gotta hunt him down. All right, anyway. All right, here we go. This is interesting. January 20th, 67. There's a Hendrix receipt for a Marshall Super Fuzz. Problem, there's no such thing as a Marshall Super Fuzz. Like a typical store clerk that can't spell, I ran a store, I'm from Alabama, I did this. The Super Fuzz is made in Japan by Shin. This is an error. He bought this pedal, Marshall Super Fuzz. Now the phonetics. Phonetics. We're doing good. I feel good about us. We have a future together.
Road trip.
This is a tone bender variant made by Color Sound at Macari's in London. And it's interesting. Hendrix using it has some interesting things in the storyline. One of them being that Octavio. A lot of us nerds who have obsessed and really worked on this story, we actually believe that the fuzz portion was not in the original Octavios. We believe he added a fuzz. And the dates are interesting. This could have been what we are hearing on Purple Haze and Fire, pushing that Octavia. We'll never know. Memories are hard. But let's plug this in. Jimi Hendrix used a tone bender. Look, there it is.
Yeah, you've heard of digital switching and there's analog switching. This is manalog switching.
Patented. I'm worried that AI is going to take my job. Isn't that interesting? See, if you're a nerd, there's two variations. I left the first one at home because it's a little fragile. These knobs are really close together. This is for the nerds. Everybody else glaze over. If you see in the photo, the knobs are close. Look at this pedal. So he's definitely using what we would call a 66 era 1 V1. These knobs prove it. And this clicker, come on clicker. Da-da-da. Yeah, they're the same circuit, a little bit different, but it's a tone bender. That's interesting because we always think fuzz face, and this is before smartphones, so not everybody was taking pictures of their lattes and pedals. Next up, big deal. August 15th, 1967, Ann Arbor, Michigan. He comes back home. Someone from Ann Arbor? Half a person's from Ann Arbor. Oh, one person. 2 Ann Arbors is 1. That didn't land. It's okay. Yeah, you know a guy. All right. This is cool. He comes back to America. He's famous. There's a lot to be said about this. Something's invented in 1966 when a guy working in the Vox factory walks through. There's an amp called the Vox Super Beetle. If you're aware, and haven't lived under a rock. The Beatles played on Ed Sullivan in '64 to 70 million people. Until that moment, Vox was a mom and pop shop on Charing Cross Road in London, and it was called Jennings Vox. The Beatles are on stage, there's all these British bands, the British Invasion. Vox gets so big, they open an American plant. And they actually make a lot of this in the new Sound City studio. This whole facility is really interesting. But in '66, the guy walks by and he hears someone turning the mid control on a Super Beetle, and he goes, wow, 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 like that. And this engineer freaks out. And he goes, I've always wanted that in a thing. And he grabs a Vox Jaguar volume pedal, and they shove the mid control in it on a knob. This is the 71st wah ever made. And it's in the enclosure. Let's go to this. These are the first photos. Hendrix had the issue that's black, but these very first ones, it's wild. That's a sticker on the side. These are literally volume pedals, and they threw the mid control. Because a wah is just an active, in all essence, an active mid control. So Hendrix gets a hold of it. He gets a hold of it in an interesting way. There's a couple stories. Clapton is the first person, he uses it on, what's the song? Tales of a Brave Ulysses. That's what we would declare the first rock wah song. Go listen to that. Hendrix hears that, but Hendrix and Zappa are also friends, and Hendrix loves Manny's music in Midtown Manhattan. And he runs down after Zappa says, you need a wah, and he goes and buys a wah. Andy brought a wah that actually works, because this artifact here makes me want to, I don't know, do stuff. It's really finicky.
Okay, wah-wahs are the most crazy circuit that I've got 20 wah-wahs at home. Josh says, I've got this old wah, it's kind of wonky.
The first step is admitting you have a problem.
I do have a problem. That's me. So he says, bring your favorite wah, and I don't have one, right? So I came yesterday to the guitar show and found a wah from 1969. Does
anyone have a favorite wah? I want to see what these people look like.
The old Vox, yeah. What you got, buddy?
Bass wah. Cool. Yeah. So here's the deal. This wah pedal is a big deal, and we first hear it on Axis Bold as Love, track 2. This is the first time a listener would have put a record on and heard Hendrix using wah. There is a song on Are You Experienced? I don't know what it is. I can't remember. Stone Free. Yeah, that's on that. There's a thing called hand wah. You see old pedal steel players playing, and they'll grab the tone control and go like this. They did that method on Are You Experienced one time, but the actual wah pedal, invented in '66, shows up in Ann Arbor, bought from Manny's, and let's see what happens here.
The switch doesn't work like I work.
Can anybody name this very famous wah-wah like this? Has nothing to do with Jimi Hendrix. We'll be right back. Fat Albert. Don't remember that? Commercial breaks are. I love famous wah-wah licks. Sorry for my
I love it. That's why I found it on Craigslist. I'm telling you, this city's just, if you need anything, Craigslist. I need a new roof back home. I'm gonna get on there immediately. How would that work from Dallas to Kansas City? I don't know. All right, next up, Bad Comedy, brought to you by us. If you want to sound like Jimi, buy a finished Stratocaster. That one's interesting. What does that mean? Could you buy a non-finished, whatever.
I have no idea.
Whatever. Arbiter Fuzzface. Notice he doesn't say, I won't get into this. Never mind. Arbiter is very specific because of what's written in the smiley. The smiley will say Dallas Arbiter or Arbiter. Hendrix used Arbiter. Dallas shows up later. Two different brands technically. a Vox Wah, and 4 Marshall amps. For the guy on the budget, you can go 3. This is June '68 Time Life magazine.
Wow.
Frank Zappa. They were into some weird stuff.
Yeah, it sounds a little backhanded, that one.
I know.
Right? It sounds a little like
I'm reading it. It's
throwing
like,
some shade. All you need is...
Yeah. All right.
Well, we know that's a JHS AT pedal.
It's true. Frank Zappa using my pedals. No.
I read it on the internet, though.
Not at all. If you heard it on the internet, it's true. Abraham Lincoln. What is this pedal? This has plagued a lot of people for a lot of years that are like me, very absurdly addicted and obnoxious about history and what actually happened. You know, people like me rewatch Ken Burns stuff just for fun. This photo's a problem. What is he using? This is March '68 at Clark University. What is this? Any guesses? Nope. One more guess? Nope. Here we go.
It's a UFO.
Manny's Music, where he bought the wah, had their own labeled pedals that you can find in various forms. I do have all of these. I'm very proud of it. My wife is wanting me to be instituted. There's 3 knobs and 2 knobs, but they're called Orpheum Fuzz, Manny's, whatever. They have a plexiglass top. This one doesn't work very well. No, this one does work. You can actually buy this today. Mine doesn't work at home. Lamar over here at Pre-Rocked Pedals, this is for sale. And it does work, but I don't want to open it up. Hendrix used this. It's incredibly rare, and just to, you know, if you're interested in this, you should go buy it. I already have.
How much is it?
I don't know.
No price? You sure?
I think it's $750, which is fair.
$1.50?
Yeah, $750. So that's a mystery. This is another interesting thing here. August of '68, Eddie Kramer. Who knows who Eddie Kramer is? He's a famous engineer. He was into photography, and Hendrix is at the record plant in New York City cutting a 3rd record. He takes some photos, and this is not a big muff. This is myth-busting time. EHX, Electro-Harmonics, in the '70s, for good reason, in their own ad copy, would say Hendrix used a muff. They would say things like the Electric Lady sound used by Jimi Hendrix, by the Big Muff. This is physically impossible. Here's what actually happened. I feel like this should be a Netflix thing. All right,
I'll watch.
This is called an AUL fuzz. It's made by a factory house on Long Island, and basically Mike Matthews, everyone know Mike Matthews? He got into pedals accidentally. He worked for IBM, and he wanted to get back into music because he's a freakishly good keys player. He gets contacted by a guy, Al Drange of Gretsch, and he says, hey, I've been making these pedals called the Foxy Lady, after Hendrix. Remember, this is '68, Hendrix is famous. Can you take it over and produce them? So he uses a manufacturing company called AUL. This is what this looks like. This pedal we see in the photo is an AUL. Hendrix did have it in the studio for the 3rd record. We'll never know if he used it or not, but what we do know for sure is Hendrix never used a big muff, because all the evidence I can find, and a lot more talented researchers than me that I trust, we can't find a single date of the big muff in advertisement until the spring of '70. This is '68. Memory is a hard thing. I can't remember what I ate for lunch, so I'm gonna expect that someone being interviewed in the '90s can't remember if this was that pedal or the other from '68. So that's a little bit of a myth bust. And we're gonna jump to this mystery pedal. This was sent to me last night by a friend. I wanna plug him in a moment. Fuzzboxes.org. Write that down if you're a nerd. It's everything about British fuzzes by the most meticulous researcher I've ever met. Fuzzboxes.org. This is a mystery pedal, and I think I know what it is because I own one. It's a Guyatone, properly pronounced Guyatone, Baz Fuzz or Buzz Fuzz. And this is pretty crazy. We have evidence that he probably used this. And then next we go to this. This is the fun part. Let's hook the Big Daddy up. August 10th of 69. Are you tracked through the career? You understand it? Really interesting, huh? 69, Hendrix is Justin Bieber and Beyonce combined. He's the biggest thing ever. I mean, he's so famous. 14 days before Woodstock, there is a photo taken in Woodstock, the town. Hendrix, with some friends, had leased a home. He was really burnt out. He actually moved up there for a bit and was rehearsing with what he thought would be a new band called Gypsy Sun and Rainbows. He was trying to figure out this whole new thing. He was so tired of playing Purple Haze and all that stuff. And this photo is taken 14 days before Woodstock Music and Arts Festival that actually happened in Bethel, New York. What is this? It's the lowest res photo known to man. It looks like they took it from the moon. This is a Shin manufactured pedal from Tokyo, Japan that was invented by a guy named Fumio Mieda-san. He created a device based off the sound of radio waves that were Russian propaganda coming from the atmosphere and interrupting his CB radios as a kid. I told you I was a nerd. I interviewed this guy. This device is the first modulation pedal ever made, and it is called the Univibe. The Univibe deserves a hand clap, yes. It's an amazing pedal. It's technically a phaser. It's not really a chorus. It'll do vibrato in the sense it removes the clean signal. It's a very cool effect. So Hendrix, this is the only example in his life where he was late to a product. This is dropped around late 67. But Japan in the 60s is so disconnected from the States. We don't have Amazon now. We don't have Guitar Centers. We don't have distributors. He got this late. And what we find out is that it's on the stage the morning of August 18th at 9 a.m. in the morning because of a rain out. We see something really cool. I think we should combine them here. Fuzzface and Fuzzface and Univibe, you want to do that? Let's chain them up. This is what's cool.
There you go.
An ex-paratrooper veteran is standing in front of a crowd at Woodstock. And he protests the Vietnam War. A lot of people don't realize this is an interesting moment culturally. And the further thing is that technology did this. Hendrix didn't have anything to say. It was a hard time. These effects actually gave him a language to use. And he played the Star Spangled Banner. And he makes the sound of bombs dropping, machine guns, children crying, ambulances. And it's a really crazy moment because technology gave this man a voice that he didn't know what to say. He didn't have his own voice in the sense of talking. So this is a veteran protesting the Vietnam War in a kind way with the guitar. That's a huge cultural moment. So let's play around here and see if you can go Woodstock on us.
I've never played through a real Univibe. I think I figured it out.
so much better than hearing me play Pearl Jam riffs. So this, first of all, give him another hand. Amazing. Super honored to know Andy as a friend and met him on Craigslist, like I said.
And let's give Josh a hand, not only a great designer, but what he's doing to document the history of our passion, the world that we love so much. He's doing us a huge, huge service by all this information today. Is that incredible? Thank you, Josh. Love every second of it, man.
So I'll close with this. Guitar is an awesome thing. And if you've ever watched my YouTube show, I love to pick at the way we can be sometimes as guitarists. We can think that you have to have expensive gear. You can think that you need this, that, or the other to make art. But the truth is, you need to just take what's in front of you and make something. Creativity is a really beautiful thing. We get hung up on gear. I love gear. I make a living. I employ 40 people making gear in America. But it's a really, I get an applause in Texas. On the East Coast, I'm talking. It's a cool thing to pause and realize that what you have is enough. This is all Hendrix had. The thing we chase is all he had. What we want the $7,000 Univibe. By the way, there's one over there. We want that, but Hendrix, it was all he had. We forget it. Isn't that fascinating? In a world of a million pedals and amps and guitars, Hendrix's talent and ability was actually held in a limitation of invention. We don't think about this. So I commission all you guitarists, songwriters, artists, go make stuff. Go write songs, because that moment right here is huge. I remember hearing this as a teenager, and the emotion of guitar began to mean something. It's a really beautiful thing. We see him through his career continue that on. The Octavia disappears because of theft, we believe. But yeah, the technology of Jimi Hendrix is a fascinating look at a few things. Every invention is handed to him perfectly. It's almost like providential. It's insanely weird. He takes these inventions, technologies, and he creates amazing art that did something that deserves to be said. He created music that changed people, and people changed culture. And if we took away these effects, imagine the Twilight Zone episode where fuzz isn't invented, where Fumio Mieda doesn't make the Univibe, where the wah is not accidentally discovered, where the Octavia is not made by a tinkering naval engineer, where the fuzz face isn't developed by a marketing genius. It's a weird world. So take what you have and really appreciate it, because invention goes along with creativity. And just put those things together. I want to give a big thank you to my clicker that doesn't work. There we go. Fuzzboxes.org. Nick is a genius. If you love British fuzz, please check this site out. I used a lot of his photography. He's a really good guy. This is on YouTube in a less exciting way because I had to learn how to use Craigslist. It's just me talking it through. And if you like this, there's also an article essay that we wrote. Kelsey here is my research assistant. She's also a brilliant writer, and she helps me with a lot of what you see. She doesn't get always seen, but you're seeing her. This was a really fun time. I'm gonna come back to this. I've never been. Andy, it's amazing. I have 2 more of Andy's pedals, and I'm gonna let Andy give them away.
Well, thank you, Josh. That's very kind of you to bring those. A slight plug. I know some of you were wanting to see the Andy Timmons band this year. We're taking this year off, but we'll be back next year, so you can expect that. Now, how am I going to give these pedals away? Thank you, guys. Mike Dane on the bass right there, Mike Dane. Woo! The guy with the Dodgers shirt. You need a pedal. Give that guy a pedal.
Tomorrow's my birthday!
All right, who's my best friend that I've never met yet?
Tomorrow's my birthday! My birthday!
Who's the biggest Barry Manilow fan here?
My birthday!
I don't know, how do I do this? Okay. What was the
Birthday!
What's that?
Birthday tomorrow!
It's your birthday?
Yes! There you go!
I I'm back here on the 4 aisle. I have a book I'm working on with a friend about the history of electroharmonics, archiving the stories of inventors that have never been told. And the company, if you have a story, come tell us. We have a little museum, Big Muff prototypes, original artifacts, really cool. So come see us. I can't thank you enough. What a warm welcome from a Midwesterner. Your barbecue's fantastic. It's on par with mine. Andy, give him one more big hand. Thank you, Josh. Yeah. We'll see you next year, maybe with something even crazier than this. Bye-bye.